Hello and welcome to the Discover History YouTube channel, and today is our first video out and about. The reason being is today we have just completed, literally a few moments ago, our first walking tour of Worcester since around about March the 20th, 21st, around about that mark. So just to let everyone know out there, our walking tours are taking place, and as always, we always have a bag full of maps and documents in just to bring history to life, but now we're also holding hand sanitizer. So if you want to book on a walk, do so. Just telephone our normal number on 07949 222 137, or even drop us an email at discoverhistory@aol.com. We've just completed our first tour of Worcester, and it's an interesting one because our first walking tour of Worcester has been the faithful story. We actually do 36 different walking tours of Worcester. The only one we haven't done and won't be doing for a bit is the Guildhall tour, mainly because it's in a confined space. However, all the other tours, all 35 other tours, are free to book onto. Tonight we have a 6 o'clock tour. It's our daily tour known as the Worcester Story, and takes you through the history of Worcester from its earliest origins to the present day. As I said, our tour that we've just completed is our Faithful Story tour, a look at Worcester during the English Civil Wars. Now, just to give a bit of history, we've been constantly doing these videos whilst on Hadrian's Wall, and we haven't managed to do one in Worcester. One of the questions we're always asked is, what is the oldest part of Worcester? Some people will say, you need to go down Friar Street or New Street, stand by all those timber framed buildings, or as people often call, stand by those black and white houses. But we must remember, houses were not black and white. That's a video for next week, by the way. Timber frame buildings. So where is the oldest part of Worcester? Well, I will actually tell you. We are stood in the oldest part of Worcester. As you can see, we've come through the Edgar Tower, which sits to my right over there, a 13th century gatehouse that would have led into the cathedral precinct, the area that was owned by the monks of the monastery attached to Worcester Cathedral, just beyond those trees there. Just next to the door, or next to the tower, stands the Gueston Hall, which is actually a modern rebuild of the original medieval Gueston Hall, the guest hall for guests that were visiting the monastery. We're actually stood in the oldest part, not because the cathedral's here, but if you can trace back using archaeology, this is where Worcester actually began. Now, we know people came to Worcester around about the end of the last ice age. So really, as the climate started to warm up, people came down here purely because the river sits behind Ian that's filming it here. So the river runs along the back there, and animals like the woolly mammoth, the herds of reindeer, that sort of thing, would have come down to the riverside, and people knew they came here and they would have hunted. So around about 10,000 BC, Stone Age people were wondering about using this river plain as a hunting ground. Afterwards, around about 700 to 750 BC, this actually became a very early settlement, probably the first settlement in the history of Worcester. So within this site, we would have had several roundhouses, and the people had switched from hunting and gathering to farming. Now, you're probably saying, well, how do you know this was around about 700 to 750 BC? The reason being is archaeologists found a stake nearby, just over there, and that stake was radiocarbon dated as being from that period. So we think that the little settlement on this mound here overlooking the river probably had a wooden palisade going all the way around the outside, maybe even a ditch as well. So the Bronze Age is really when the settlement begins in Worcester, where people actually put down firm footings, and it's quite a nice spot. You can imagine it being a very early little settlement on this site. But then the history changes. In the Iron Age, this probably was a fortified area, because we know by the time the Romans come along in around about 50 AD, this was the site of the settlement owned by the Dubuni tribe, and it would have used this nice bit of high ground. There was also a fording point on the river just behind Ian there, down on the riverside, pretty much where the Watergate stands today. and people were happy living here. But when the Romans come along, they would have refortified this site. So this is really, the ground that we're studying is actually the oldest part. By the Middle Ages, however, this becomes a shared area. There would have been a ditch and a wall running straight down the middle of the college green, and over to that direction would have been the site of Worcester's Mottin Bailey Castle. That would have been laid out by the Norman Conquest or post-Norman Conquest. And then over to my right in this direction was Churchland. There is a fantastic story how the Bishop of Worcester once put a curse on the castle saying no good will come of that site, and it's funny because today it's owned by the King's School. Henry VIII rededicated King's School, and the best thing about that King's School is they do have very good grades, so that curse obviously doesn't exist today. One of the most famous people to come to the King's School on this site here would have gone to the original King's School in College Horn, and that would have been a man called Edward Winslow. And he's important because, as I said in some of the previous videos, 400 years ago he was the man that helped settle in America. Edward Winslow, born in Droitwich, went to the King's School. So like I say, this is our first of many videos out and about. Not in Hadrian's Wall now, but now the easing of the restrictions is disappearing, or easing much better, we can actually go out and do some videos in our home city of Worcester. Like I said, if you want to go on any of our tours, please go on our website either, www.discover-history.co.uk, and on there, if you click on the bit that says guided walks, you will see all the walks we're doing. As I said, we are making sure that social distancing is taking place. We're not going into any confined areas, and in our bag we've always got hand sanitizer. So stay safe out there, join us on one of our walks. Worcester is open, let's shield our city, stay safe and get out and support our heritage. See you soon, bye bye.